Oh man, recording already, huh?
Yes, sir. I'm not fucking around. Don't worry, I'll
Good. Yeah, so here's something for you to cut out. First,
maybe we should just get into the review.
yeah, maybe. Okay. All right.
Okay. I was gonna do this like little intro. Okay, are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Attention, sports fans, you are in for a treat. Today, welcome to oh wait, I'm gonna start over. I watched like 5 seconds of Howard Cosell this morning thinking I could impersonate him, but apparently not. So I'll stick with Tim Gunn and who else? I don't know. Anyway, okay. Hey everybody. God, I can't even do this. I don't know what's wrong. I feel like we're such a sham. I don't know. This cover is so gorgeous. So I like this. Wouldn't you like? I wouldn't not want to not have this as a poster. Like it's so
Yeah,
good.
I was
Anyway,
planning on talking about that one for sure. Yeah.
hey guys, how's it going? Michael Troy here. Boy, are you in for a treat. We are kicking off a special series with my special guest co-host, artist extraordinaire, creator of Dishoom, and other upcoming projects, Sam J. Royale. This is something we cooked up together due to our mutual admiration for a certain obscure superhero, which I actually have Sam to thank for sort of introducing, if not reintroducing, into my life. We are starting, and we are also, in a way, trolling Ben Granoff and Eli Schwab's Grendel cast by doing our own NFL Super Pro, semi pros on Super Pro. Sam J. Royale and Michael Fitzgerald Troy are going to dissect issue by issue the legendary Super Pro series. So anyway, Sam, why don't you share with us a little background, um, I feel like I've said in my review of this book, I vaguely remember this superhero. He does have a cool costume, but obviously he means a lot more to you. Would you like to share your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. But first, I want to say thanks for bringing up Ben Granoff and Eli Schwab and Grendelcast because what happened with those two. Those two were covering Matt Wagner's Grendel, and while they were still working on that show and rereading all the old issues, it became a Netflix series. It got greenlit as a new show. And so now when that show comes out and people are looking for any content related to Grendel, they're going to find Grendelcast, and they're going to be the go-to source of information for new fans coming in. And I feel like with Super Pro, we have the intersection of Disney and the NFL. That's huge, right? Marvel, MCU stuff, it's all really big right now. What's stopping them from making, I hope, three movies? We want like a trilogy of Super Pro movies, and then a 6 episode series, and then its own spinoff, like What If series. And then, they got to relaunch the comic too, and, hire top tier talent like us to work on it. That's what I'm thinking. And, even if the latter part doesn't happen, at least when, all of this new love for Super Pro inevitably happens, people are going to find your show here when we're talking about Super Pro. My introduction to the character was this copy here of the first issue. My sister won it at school and had no interest in comic books, so she gave it to me. And when I was growing up, I did not have a ton of comics. I didn't read a single full run of anything until I was in college. So I just had my few comics that I read over and over and over again in this very well worn, held together by Scotch tape copy of Super Pro as proof of that. I was devastated when I accidentally ripped off the cover, and I very lovingly taped it back together when, oh God, 31 years ago, and it's still held together since. So yeah, this character, even though I was never a sports fan, this character had a really big impact on me for whatever reason. And so I guess we'll dive in and explore why.
I think you just brought up another good point. So we're doing this extensive deep dive analyzation of the Super Pro comic, and neither one of us is in remotely qualified. I couldn't tell you too much about football. I have relatives who like football, so that's pretty much my connection to football. And I couldn't even find a football related T-shirt to wear during this podcast, so I just wore my big boy T-shirt instead because I figured that's kind of butch, you know. So I don't know.
I'm in the same boat. I think our video series here is going to disappoint my father and a lot of my wife's cousins. But what are you going to do?
Right. I'm sure it'll disappoint a lot of people, but we can't worry about that.
But you know what? And before we get too apologetic, in our defense, I listened to an interview with Buzz Dixon, who wrote issue 5 of Super Pro. I'm not sure if he wrote other ones. We'll find out as we go through our coverage. But he mentioned that part of why he was brought on as writer was because he was the only one in the Marvel staff who had any familiarity with football and the only one who played in high school. So I feel like the book was made by a lot of people like us. And so we don't have to feel too bad talking about it.
You know, that's actually a good point. Like comic book nerds aren't necessarily the jocks. So it makes sense that we don't know what the heck we're talking about, but we do know about art and comic books and storytelling. And this comic book is completely off the chain. No, so you have to clear this up for me and I guess a little research would have paid off, but is this the first actual publication before issue 1 of the series, correct?
Yes, I think so. I'm a little confused about it too. So what I found was September 1991. But yes. I think it says that it's retelling the origin. So I can't find...
that is my problem here. It says representing the awesome origin issue. So where was it before?
I have no idea, because this does predate issue 1, which I have, because that one is October 91. And to make things even more complicated, that amazing Joe Jusko painted cover on the copy you have, it's dated 1990. And so how long was Super Pro in development for, and when was it first published? And I don't know. And you know how these things go, like whenever you have big companies involved, there's a lot of people wanting to provide their own input. And so I wonder how much backseat driving there was from the NFL, and you know how much red tape was involved. Maybe it got slowed down just because of that kind of thing.
Now, on one hand, it would make sense that it would take several months of negotiations between Marvel and the NFL, who's arguably probably busy with a ton of other stuff. So I'm sure there was a lot of development. However, when you read the book, it really reads like they kind of just threw it together in a couple weeks. So, you know, who knows for sure.
Especially, they have different short stories that are all mashed together in that book, and they all have different art teams. And so, I'm curious about that. Maybe they were all just, they were all scripted and presented to the art teams together, and then different art teams are working on different pages at the same time just to get the book out faster. Who knows?
Yeah. So basically it's, it's kind of genius, you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't know if the cross section of fandoms didn't work out or whatever, but if I were into football, I would love this even more than I already do, because first of all, it's a superhero who's a football player, which is, come on, let's face it, sports stars are pretty much superheroes anyway. Right. You know what I mean? You watch the Olympics and people are like flying around like, it could easily be the Danger Room at, Professor Charles Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, for the love of Pete. But, and then, so it's a superhero who's also a football player. And, that's kind of genius. Written by Fabian Nicieza, who, obviously comic book legend, X-Men, New Warriors, Cable, just tons of other things. Jose Delbo, penciler, chapters 1 and 3, Pop Hall, penciler, chapter 2. Inkers Tom Morgan, Mike DiCarlo, Kim DeMulder, and Bob Hall. Letters Janice Chiang and Chris Eliopoulos, and Evelyn Stein colors. Editor Bob Budiansky, and editor-in-chief Tom DeFalco. So you told me that Fabian Nicieza basically agreed to write this because he would get season tickets to
That's
some
what I
football.
read. Yeah, I don't know if that's true. Maybe one day we'll be able to ask him directly and find out. But that's what I had heard, that he basically was offered free tickets, and if you're into football, which he is, that's pretty cool. Who'd want to pass that up?
Absolutely.
I think it's really interesting, though, you talking about the different spheres of fandom between comics and sports, especially because like now with comic related media being as ubiquitous as it is, it's pretty common to see people who are into anything and everything. It's not that unusual to find someone who's into sports and superheroes now, but I feel like in 1991, those are very segregated camps of sports fans and comic fans. There's definitely some overlap for sure. There's some people who are into all of it, but it definitely felt like you said, jocks versus nerds back 30 years ago.
Yeah, I mean that could actually be an episode of itself. Vodka rocks, 8 a.m. I'm just kidding.
It was the only way I could
Sam J needing a little liquid courage to get through the Super Pro.
My wife just glanced over to see if I was actually drinking. Come on.
And cut him some slack. Come on. So anyway, this is like an 11 issues or 11 issues plus the special edition, plus the only other, I mean, I think, and this is the only way we could extend the series. So there's this also What the Marvel comedy
Right.
parody book that has Super Pro on the cover. And this is a badass cover. I freaking love this. That looks pretty amazing. I cannot believe that you've turned me into this huge Super Pro fan. I like to give you credit, but I more like to give you blame. But so I wonder if there are other appearances of NFL Super Pro. Like, did he have an entry in the Marvel Universe handbook? I doubt it.
I don't think he did in the Marvel handbook, and I looked into it a little bit, and the closest thing I could find, I should have written it down because this was maybe a couple months ago before we were even talking about the show. Just for my own curiosity's sake, I was wondering if Super Pro was in the extended Marvel universe, and what I found was there was some big crossover event where they had like different people from different realities coming together, and they had one superhero who seemed to be wearing football pads and a helmet, but his colors were all red and black instead of the very patriotic looking Super Pro costume that we're used to. So I don't know if it was just a kind of reference or a coincidence or what, but as far as I know, other than the issues you mentioned and the one you held up, I don't think there's any other examples.
Yeah, I know. I would definitely, speaking of, like, I would definitely love to maybe in Nicieza come and talk to us. Like, love to hear like who designed the character, how, like what kind of mandate he may or may not have had as far as what he had to include. Because it does seem like as wacky as the story is, and as wild as seemingly random as some of the things that are in there, it does seem like there's a lot of intent as far as some of the content is concerned.
Yeah, at least in the first two issues. And so far, the only two issues I've read. So we'll see as the Super Pro's world expands over the course of the 12-issue run.
But, yeah, I think you're an issue ahead of me. I don't think I've read issue 2 yet.
Oh, no. All I read was the special edition origin and issue 1. That's all I read so far. Those are the 2 issues I've read. So I have not gotten to 2 yet. But
so take us through some of your 10 pages of notes on a 22-page comic book.
I did take a lot of notes here, but one of my notes is just a drawing of Marco Sanzanier's ponytail, one of the villain characters in Super Pro 1. So the first thing was I thought it was interesting that it opened, the special edition issue opened in New Jersey. You don't really see New Jersey getting a whole lot of love there. It's kind of an unglamorous choice for setting for the debut of this character. But it opens with some criminals stealing chemicals in New Jersey because they are going to be making some experimental steroids that are going to be abused by NFL players. And Super Pro wants to put a stop to that because we'll get into why. But yeah, it opens with him roughing up these bad guys. And when the police arrive, Super Pro escapes by what I think is a standing jump that's 2 stories straight into the air. Because he's like on the ground and then suddenly he's on the rooftop, and they show one arc like for that jump. And so it's like one thing I want to hopefully get a better understanding of about Super Pro through your input and what we see in future issues is what exactly are his powers. It looks like so far after reading these first 2 comics, Vertical Leap is the only one I've got. That's the only one that's clearly shown a few times, that he can jump really, really high, because there's another scene where he jumps over like a 15-foot fence in one jump.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think like what else would. So basically, he's non-super powered. He has this super powered football suit that we've only seen able to jump so far. I mean,
well, so that's the other thing. I think he has superpowers too. They just didn't explain exactly what they are, because there is a scene where he is exposed to some questionable chemicals, and it seems like that cures whatever injuries he sustained during his football career. So I don't know. He has both a superpower suit and superpowers. He's like Captain America wearing Iron Man's suit.
I mean, this should be like, and he's, a football player. I mean, this should be like the most gangbusters, like exciting, popular, most powerful, like epic. I mean, Thanos who? It's like, did I say Thanos? Thanos who? I mean, like Super Pro is obviously the most powerful character in the. And does Disney not own the NFL? I mean, I thought they owned everything. So yeah, I was like, I should do the research. Like this should be a shoe-in for a movie. And like you've got the movie poster right here.
Yeah.
Like
you can't mess with that Joe Jusko painting. It's beautiful.
I know. I would also actually love to have Joe Jusko on just to talk about, I mean, of course, anything and everything, his whole artistic process, but this cover specifically. It's funny how fans like us always sort of revere certain things, and for all we know, Joe Jusko is like, oh god, I'm Super Pro, no, oh my god, but with no shame in his game. It's like a gorgeous painting, so who cares that it's based on arguably one of the more ridiculous characters. I mean, as I said in my first video, like he's kind of like a huge loser. Like I don't even remember his real name, but he's like Phil Grayfield. He's like a college football star. He's all set to like be in the NFL, but he keeps getting sidelined and never actually even plays a game of football. So therein lies the tragic irony of the whole character.
Yeah, so I wanted to get a good handle on this, so I wrote a summary of his full football career in order here. And it starts with him playing in college as a linebacker for Notre Dame. And every time he plays, he always has number 64 on the jersey. I wonder if that's a reference to anything, or if, maybe Fabian, you see as his favorite number. But then he gets drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles. And again, wears the number 64. And on the first day of training camp, so like not just like before any games, but the first day, he injures his knee and needs physical therapy for 1 full year. And then he rejoins the Eagles the following year. And then he injures his leg on a first exhibition game with the New York Giants. And then he breaks his femur and gets cut by the Eagles. And then he heals up and joins the Chicago Bears, again, number 64. And he meets who appears to be an important character in the Super Pro world, a fictional player named Ron Macedon. And he plays for the Bears. And they become friends. And Ron has a son named Jeremy, which I thought was weird because you see the name Ron Jeremy on the page. I don't know if that was a joke or, just a coincidence.
Now, if Super Pro's name were his number were 69, then I would think it was intentional. But Other than that, it's just another glitch in the matrix.
Right.
Ron Jeremy.
Right. Yeah. So there's Ron Macedon and his son, Jeremy Macedon. And so Jeremy is watching his dad at practice. And so he's running up and down the bleachers thinking like, I'm going to be a sports star too, Dad. And then he trips and falls. And so Phil Grayfield dives and catches him and injures his leg again. And so what happens is there's a scene where the doctor breaks the news to him, like they show like the x-ray of his like leg snapped in half basically. And his career's over. That's the end of his sports career. So what kind of bugs me about that is if I'm not mistaken, there's a future cover that says from football hero to superhero. If it's not a cover, it might be an ad. I know I'm not making that one up. It's not on issue 1, but
he went from sacking quarterbacks to tackling crime.
Well, technically,
he didn't
that's
sack shit.
But like to have the NFL logo and then to say football hero, it implies he's like an NFL football hero, but he's definitely not. And I wonder how much of that is from the NFL. Like maybe they mandated to Marvel, like we can't associate this fictional character too strongly with any one team, right? So maybe that's why he is on 2 different teams and never played a game.
Oh, good point.
I don't know.
You can't. Yeah, preferential or whatever.
Because I can't see a narrative reason for it other than red tape. So yeah, anyways, that ends his career. And Ron and Jeremy Macedon visit Phil Grayfield in the hospital, and Ron feels terrible about what happened. And this is actually kind of a nice hero moment for Phil Grayfield here, because
this is it.
Pretty much, but I think like this shows that it's that one glimmer of hope where he is just he has no regrets about it, and he's like, you know what, if Jeremy was in trouble, I would have done the same thing again, knowing it would end my career. He just does not put as much importance on his career as he values the lives of others, and it's that one superhero moment you get from him.
I guess it's better than if he would have been like clutching his ankle and screaming, "Why me?" like Nancy Kerrigan, right? That might have been a little less heroic, right?
Nancy Kerrigan as a superhero for Marvel would be interesting.
If I could do it all over again, I would choose a professional career in the NFL.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know why Phil Grayfield took it so well, but he did. And so Ron felt bad about it, so he hooked him up with a sports broadcasting job. And so that's why Phil becomes a reporter. And I think you pointed out in your video already that his girlfriend, Jane Dixon, who's also a reporter, is just basically copied and pasted Lois Lane. Like, I don't think there's any way around it, because like there's all the like the coy little like, ooh, why are you late again? One day I'm going to find out your secrets, Phil Grayfield. And fast forwarding a little, the end of this special edition issue, it ends with him basically saying to her, like, yeah, maybe my secret will be the story of your career. And then he looks directly at the reader and winks. He breaks the fourth wall, like Animal Man.
Yes, that's so awesome. Why not, right?
Doesn't that sound like a Silver Age Superman moment?
It totally does. Absolutely. Yes. I know. I feel like we're building. Maybe this is like the most genius comic book ever. And
it could be.
And through our dissection, we were going to get to the bottom of how genius this actually is. But so this once again, though, this like astute reporter. So basically, Spider-Man figures out his secret by, he doesn't figure out his secret, but he's spying on him. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's the first issue. I'm getting ahead of myself. But the point I'm trying to make is like his cameraman figures out his secret.
Ken Reed.
Yeah. Right. And then, of course, the person he's actually having sex with has no idea, right. As usual. I mean,
Well, this brings up an interesting thing. There's a recurring thing in just the first 2 issues where whenever he's interacting with a criminal, he has to like introduce himself. They have no idea who he is. And he, it's always something like the name Super Pro and don't forget it or whatever. And people like Ken Reed, his cameraman, is very aware of Super Pro. And then later in the special edition issue, when he's fighting a steroid monster, there's a little kid sticking his head out the window and he's like, yeah, Super Pro, get him. And so it's like, it's very pick and choose with who knows Super Pro and who doesn't. But
right.
the way cameraman Ken Reed figures out his secret identity is kind of strange. I don't know how much of it is intentional, but I was picking up a little homoeroticism between these two characters.
Oh yeah,
over these two issues. Yes, because
now you've piqued my interest. I'm just kidding.
you should look at it. I'd love to get your perspective on this, because he basically has this all this different computer software. It seems like Ken Reed is really into technology and really adept with all that stuff. And so he gets like a computer printout of Super Pro's face and Phil Grayfield's face. And he determines from the bone structure and the jawline. And he, like, specifically, if you look at, there's a picture showing their lips side by side, like he's zoomed in and he's just been staring at both of their lips for who knows how long.
He's like, hey, Phil, you know that Super Pro has those dick sucking lips too.
Right? I mean, and I get it, because it's like that's the only part of his flesh that's visible. But yeah, it's just, so you have him really studying Phil Grayfield's lips, his co-worker's lips, and then he finds out that he's Super Pro, and there was another thing. He noticed that they both had the same, like, deformed pinky from an old injury.
Right.
And, like,
and
if you can tell
actually
someone has an injured pinky through a gloved hand, that's impressive. But he was able to tell.
No, but that was actually one of my big beefs with
right, they drew the wrong
first issue,
finger.
is that he said he had an injured little finger, and it's clearly a picture of an index finger. I just thought,
right.
I don't know, maybe,
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, at that point, just change the script
that.
to match the art, right? Because who cares, like, which finger it is? But the other moment of homoeroticism that I wanted to bring up is they are, so after he makes it clear to Phil Grayfield that he knows his secret identity, that's when you get in flashback his superhero origin. I guess we should probably get into that too, because so yeah, his career is over. He's now a reporter. And again, on his first day on the job, it's always like the worst first days with Phil Grayfield, because he goes to interview someone named Rudy Custer, who is a reclusive, wealthy NFL memorabilia collector who's also a genius inventor. Okay.
Naturally.
Right. And it's just like this really weird hodgepodge of different things. And I guess he's writing a story about how Custer accidentally bought some counterfeit memorabilia. Why that's breaking news, I don't know, but a rich guy bought some fake shit, and news at 11. And so he goes there, and this guy is so reclusive that he keeps a low public profile and nobody knows where he lives. So it's very hush hush that Phil Grayfield has been given his address. And so Grayfield goes to Custer's house, and Custer is showing him his sports memorabilia, and Grayfield's like on cloud nine, just in love seeing all this football history. And Custer can see the excitement on Grayfield's face. And he's like, oh, let me show you my absolute favorite item. This is the crown jewel of my collection. And he takes him to another room, and he unveils the Super Pro armor, which he invented himself. And there's something, I wrote down the exact quote because I thought it was unusual word choice. He says, the Super Pro uniform, the football uniform of the future. I invented it in the 70s. And I don't know what to make of that, because
that is so weird. That is so cutting edge.
how long has Super Pro been active? Like, when did this take place? Because if it was in 91, then it's outdated technology. And like, so I don't know. And then, like he said, he further expounds that the suit is made from fiberglass, plastic alloys, and is bulletproof. because, you know, players are always getting shot during the games. And
Fiberglass. I know. So Fieros are bulletproof. I remember those old cars, Fieros. They were like made out of
oh, really?
fiberglass. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so like, hey, maybe wouldn't that be great if we found out Rudy Custer was a real guy and this is all based on some semblance of reality?
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah.
Right.
Actually, it's funny because it does feel like he does seem like if he's not a real person, it feels like he's based on someone real, because it just felt like like the little, like there's a picture of him.
Him with the
Um,
hat and his hands in his pockets. It
and
actually
it
did
just
feel
felt
very
like
real.
it looked like it was drawn from photo reference. I
Same with
mean,
Ron Macedon. That's why I had to look him up and see if he was a real player.
what I don't know about what do you call it? Football. I know about art. So that's what we're here for. I mean,
Right.
not really, but
Well, yeah,
yeah.
Jose Delbo. I mean, as far as the art goes in these comics, I think it has a really strong, solid house style overall. And there's some really interesting things that they do pull off with coloring and inking. I didn't write down a page number, but there is in that special edition this one scene with these police cars and the way they chose to render and ink the headlights and the sirens was pretty cool looking. Had a lot of energy to it. It looked pretty exciting to see the
Well,
police.
I mean, Jose Delbo, is a known artist. I mean,
Yeah,
he was like, uh, you know, I forgot. I don't know what else he did. I'll have to research him a little for the future issues. And also, now you've got me thinking that it's very important to look for the homoeroticism that may or may not exist throughout the rest of the
we're
series.
getting there. There's more to come. Yeah, like yeah, because like it's mostly between him and the cameraman Ken Reed. But yeah, so Custer is showing Grayfield his Super Pro armor, and just then these thugs with guns bust in, just like that,
Right.
and they do with the intent of stealing the sports memorabilia and making some money.
Right. See, and that was like another point of why Phil is such a freaking loser. So this is so he gets this huge assignment to like go interview this very reclusive guy,
Yeah,
and these bad guys just follow him to the interview. Like, how the hell did they find out about this?
that's what
And
I want to know.
like
Did they bug the? Like,
like, wow, if this is all it took to finally get this guy's memorabilia, like, anyway.
and yeah, and I'm not sure how much they even made off with, but then they use these film canisters where Custer has a collection of like old sports footage in these film canisters, and so they take the film canisters, they rip out the film, and they tie up Custer and Grayfield, and then they start a fire. They leave them to die in the burning house, and they run off in their van full of memorabilia.
It
And
just makes no sense.
well, this is where it gets really crazy, because here is where you get the rare, once in a lifetime, one in a million chemical combination that results in Phil Grayfield getting superpowers. Somehow melted plastic getting poured all over him like gives him superpowers. It fixes his broken leg and it makes him able to jump 20 feet in the air. I don't know. And so he's able to bust out of the film and he gets Custer to safety, and then he puts on the Super Pro suit and then on foot runs after and catches up with the car. And so that makes me think, okay, well, he has super speed, right? But the thing is, in this one, Super Pro 1, he is shown being unable to catch up with a car when he's right there. Like he's next to the car and the car drives off and he can't catch up to it. And here he had time to put on the costume and then run after it. You know? So
Perhaps it was the adrenaline rush.
sure. It was the adrenaline rush. And so he catches up to the bad guys and he busts them up and they get arrested. And Custer lets him keep the Super Pro suit. And
why not?
sure. I mean, I guess like, he saved his life and everything. But so I guess Custer knows that Phil Grayfield is Super Pro. Hopefully we see more of him in future issues. But anyways, that's all told through flashback while Ken Reed is confronting Phil Grayfield after matching his lips. And then you see them in, I think, Ken Reed's hotel room at the Sheraton. And Ken is sitting on the bed and he has with him a desktop computer, 2 monitors, and a keyboard. And he's like looking, this is 91, and he's looking stuff up. Like he's like doing full-blown internet research from a desktop in a hotel room. So like, how did he get this hookup?
Yeah, there it is.
And so I think that's a little odd, like, the guy in bed and like the other guy with him, and like in the hotel room together. And just, while on the subject of homoeroticism, and like just to bring the whole thing here, this one where, so Ken Reed later becomes Super Pro's partner. No real reason why. I guess he likes him. They're coworkers, thinks he's a nice guy. He likes that he's a former athlete. And so Ken Reed drives a green van. I don't know if that's showing up.
It is,
and it's this nondescript green van. And so he just picks up Super Pro. So you see this red, white, and blue and gold superhero run into this van, like in the middle of LA traffic. It's LA in this issue. And then he's undressing in the back of the van with his buddy Ken. And it's probably nothing. It's probably just like locker room type stuff. But I just think it's worth calling out personally.
I actually, look very closely at that panel. It's very sus.
Well, I mean, I feel like these scenes with Ken Reed are more sexually charged than any time you see him with Jane Dixon.
Yeah, I thought you said Jean Dixon at first, and Jean Dixon is like this old dead psychic, which makes it hilarious. That would be so awesome if he was actually he was dating a psychic and she still didn't know his secret identity.
That would be
She's
amazing.
a fraud. Actually, that's a good idea. That has to be worked into a story somewhere. You're dating a psychic fraud. Oh my God, hilarious! Love it.
Definitely. Oh, that's perfect. It's the perfect cover. If everyone believes she's a psychic, and no one would suspect her partner of being a superhero.
Here's a good soundbite for our series. I mean, I just think there's something inherently gay about football anyway. I'm just kidding.
Oh boy. My wife's nodding with agreement. Mayha's nodding with agreement right now.
As the rest of the world is like,
I'm shutting my mouth here. I feel like I already said enough.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just thought it was interesting, those scenes with Ken, because like they're very close, but they don't really seem to say why, other than they're just there. So I wonder if there's like underlying attraction.
Perhaps you're reading too much into it. Maybe it's just a good old fashioned, bromance. No, maybe not even a bromance, but just like friendship. Like a buddy, like they're buddies.
Well, you bring up a good point, Michael. I think I have read into Super Pro more than maybe anyone else on the planet.
I know. Perhaps we're giving it too much credit. I know. See, that's actually like going to be the big secret when, if we ever get a chance to talk to Fabian Nicieza, he's going to be like, I don't know. I have no idea. Like, I would write it, like in a half hour on the way to work just to get it done. I don't know. But I mean, I have like, for all its wackiness, like it is like seriously one of the most fun comic books.
Absolutely. I spent many hours as a child drawing the Super Pro armor because I thought it was just so much fun to draw. And I actually did do that again more recently, about a month ago. And, my wife and I were at the same table. She was doing real work and I was sitting there doing digital touch-ups on my Super Pro piece. And every now and then she just hear a giggle and she's like, what is so funny? Like after maybe the third or fourth giggle, she just had to ask. And I just like, he's just so much fun to draw. And, and I have twin nephews who are turning 8 soon. And I got this issue from my parents' basement where it was in storage. And my nephews were over and I showed them the character, and one of them looked completely indifferent. And the other one was like, he looks so cool. And he just like lit up. And what's interesting about these twin nephews is one is really into sports and the other one isn't. And the one who's really into sports could not have cared less about Super Pro.
Well, I mean, I guess in a way that makes sense.
Right, but it's like very like we were talking about, like the 90s jocks versus nerds type of thing. And so that was just interesting because you'd think, it maybe this kid who likes superheroes and sports might be into this one. He wasn't at all. But what are you gonna do?
And perhaps that's why 30 years later, we're the only two people on the planet still talking about Super Pro.
Well, that's going to change. This is going to kick off a sports pun, kick off a whole new resurgence of Super Pro popularity.
Yeah, that's my dream for this series that we're doing, is to give Super Pro sort of a new life and a new recognition, and just sort of carry on the legacy of Super Pro. I mean, I think he deserves it.
Absolutely. Yes. Everyone deserves a second chance, or in Phil Grayfield's case, fourth or fifth after how many injuries. But yeah, he deserves a lot of chances, I think.
And it's like, I really dogged him in my video for being a loser in a way, lovingly so. But I think maybe that's part of his charm, is that, it's not about how you fall down. It's about how you stand up. And if you stand up and you can jump 3 stories in the air, then that's a good way to stand up.
I think so. I think that's a very good point. And so then back to the A plot of this issue, where they're investigating this whole steroid abuse in the NFL, with Chicago Bear rookie Carl Bradford Bennings is his name, and they show his face transform from high school to college to his new NFL career, and you just see his cheekbones, his brow ridge, and his jaw just become more and more pronounced as he's abusing steroids as he's going. And they make it a point to call out his arm acne, and Phil Grayfield even makes an Oxy 10 reference, which I thought was funny.
That is funny.
Because it's like, wow, that's like a brand I haven't thought of in who knows how long. And yeah,
I feel like they must have gotten the acne situation under control. I just never see acne commercials anymore. Yeah, I'm just kidding. I'm sure. Maybe it's just because I'm too old to care about.
Yeah, we're not watching anymore. Things geared towards teens anymore. That's what it is.
True that, right?
That's all it is.
For middle-aged men with still suffering from acne.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, so there's a scientist that they're investigating named Henry Morrison, and he's the one developing this experimental steroid. And Super Pro goes to investigate, and I'm trying to find the exact words because I thought it was great. He finds Morrison's computer, and he wants to find evidence that ties Morrison to steroid production. And so Super Pro, at the scientist's computer, types in illegal steroid compounds and finds 0 results, because unfortunately for him, Henry Morrison doesn't have a folder on his desktop that says all my illegal criminal shit, like in one convenient place. And that's it. Like, he tries that one search and then he's like, might as well go home.
I give up.
And so he leaves empty-handed. And then later on, he and Ken Reed, as him and his civilian identity as Phil Grayfield, they go and confront Morrison. They just bust into his office with cameras, and they're like, hey, Mr. Morrison, would you care to comment on your involvement with all this illegal steroid production? And he's like, I'm not saying anything about that. And and they're like, well, you better, or someone else is going to say it about you. And so he's like, okay. And he just like spills everything and incriminates himself. And then he reveals that the steroids that Bennings is taking is a 5-step process, and he's already taken the first 4 doses, and he's going to take the 5th dose today before the big game. And then it cuts to Bennings popping pills into his mouth, and then he doesn't feel so good, and then basically hulks out of his shirt and like just can't stop growing. And they give him very Liefeldian musculature, and his muscles look more like tumors. at this point, and he just keeps growing and growing, and he even loses his ability to speak properly. And so Super Pro, unable to get there in time to stop him from taking that last dose, has to fight the roided up monster. And that's when you get the kid sticking his head out the window saying, yeah, get him, Super Pro. And then he falls out of the window, and Super Pro's got to deal with this kid now and get him to safety. And then he fights the roided up monster. And I think Bennings, unfortunately, has a heart attack. And Super Pro looks very anguished. They actually did a great job on his expression on the art here, where Super Pro is trying to do CPR and revive him, and it doesn't look like he's successful. And he calls for an ambulance, and I don't remember if he made it or not in the end. Bennings, maybe you could check that.
I know. I don't think that he did.
I don't think he did either, because I want to show, how dangerous drugs are. So
I'm gonna like if this is like, can you see the look on his face there? I'm gonna try to administer CPR. It's if you're at that point, I don't know. Let's see. Someone please call an ambulance. Yes, that one that's off in the distance will do.
Someone please call that ambulance.
Sorry about Bennings. Yeah, me too. Oh well, we did the best we could. Oh well, no big deal.
That's another recurring theme, is how flippant Super Pro is about people dying around him. That comes up in issue 1.
Yeah.
But so,
maybe.
Sorry.
I mean, I'm hoping we get into the psychology of why he's so what's the word? Such a sociopath. I'm just kidding.
I don't know. Maybe because isn't that something where James Fallon was talking about, one of the traits of a sociopath is that they just never give up because they don't ever feel discouraged.
Wow, that is so profound. I think that sums up Super Pro. He's a sociopath.
It could be.
He never gives up because he never feels discouraged, even though clearly the universe is screaming do not do this. This is such a huge mistake. It's and if you need to be a superhero and be given this 20-year out of date tech suit, I don't know about that. I don't know about the whole situation. I developed this technology in the 70s. That's always I'm always so impressed by that,
Right.
That must be so cutting edge,
that technological golden age of the 1970s,
as it predates the Walkman.
Yeah. And so the special edition basically ends there, where he reunites with his girlfriend Jane Dixon, and they have that little banter, and he looks directly at the reader and winks, and that's it.
Right.
And it ends with him winking, and then sort of the end, it says the beginning, which is so presumptuous, but
right.
They went for it.
No, I mean, they, I like to think, yeah, that's so true. I know that's so cheesy, isn't it? Oh my God.
I love it though. Oh, and you called out in your video her makeup, the blush, really being overdone there.
Absolutely. She looks like a complete tart. I know the other inconsistency is that he says how good the lox and bagel and cream cheese they're having is. Clearly there's no lox on this bagel. That could have been a coloring mistake. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the blush is just from the coloring as well. So that could be a coloring issue too for the lox.
Right. I feel like she did have some killer blue eyeshadow on it at some point too.
Yes. Earlier in the issue. I think when they first introduced her, she has a whole lot of makeup going on there.
Right. And then he calls her and she's walking around her apartment eating cookies and milk in a negligee. I like that part too.
Yeah, that's in this issue, which I thought was interesting because it made me think that there was another guy in the next room over.
That's what I thought too. I thought she would, maybe.
That may come up in a future issue.
Exactly. See, there's her makeup. Dude. I mean, if nothing else, people are going to be so impressed by our mad editing skills on this video.
Oh, that's all your editing skills. Whatever
I'm
bringing to the table there.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Well, I stand by my answer. Absolutely. Or my statement, rather.
They will be blown away by your editing, for sure. And that, I guess, brings us to this one. Are we talking about this one now?
I guess we can. Why not? Let's just... bust that one out too. Do I have my, so in this one, this one, it gets even better. Because what would a Marvel comic book be without a gratuitous guest starring role from Spider-Man, right? I mean, that
Yes.
makes sense to put Spider-Man in the first issue, especially with this questionable, like, I mean, because honestly, like, yeah, like, I think we figured it out. The fact that, you know, the crossover appeal here isn't guaranteed. You know what I mean? Just because
Right.
you're a, a, a sports fan doesn't mean you're going to pick up this comic book if you're not a comic book fan, I don't think. However, if you're a Spider-Man fan, you might pick this up, right? And craziest representation of Spider-Man. I'm like, he doesn't even really do anything. They don't team up. He doesn't help him. He
Yeah.
doesn't, like, Spider-Man lets a man fall to his death, which was my huge problem with this.
Yeah.
You want to sum it up, Sammy?
I 100% agree with you. It was something I made note of. It was very jarring to see Spider-Man be so unfazed by this guy dying in front of him while he missed with his web line. He, tried to save him and missed. But yeah, anyways, this issue, yeah, like you, when my sister gave me this and I didn't know who Super Pro was, I was really excited because Spider-Man was on the cover. And like I said, I didn't have a lot of comics growing up, so this is my first comic book featuring Spider-Man, and so I was pretty psyched about that. Like, oh, Spider-Man, I'm
Wow.
finally going to get to see Spider-Man's deal, and that was kind of a letdown. But
I was going to say, I don't even know how to feel about the fact that this was your first Spider-Man comic book. What what a huge letdown.
You know what, though, as a kid, I didn't really think too analytically about it. He was there, he was hanging upside down, he was spinning webs. That was all I wanted to see. So
That's a good point, because a lot of my videos are like reviewing and talking about comic books that I haven't read since I was a kid. And
yeah,
like, I notice so many things so differently now as an adult that like are obviously like, wow, that's really messed up, or like, oh wow, that's crazy. And yeah, Spider-Man letting a man fall to his death and being very blasé about it was very
out of character. Yeah.
of character, I thought. Which
Um,
is
sorry.
which is weird because Fabian Nicieza at this point is like a very celebrated popular writer who I think actually did write Spider-Man at one point. So um, but it fit the character. I mean, it fit, and not the character, I'm sorry, it fit the storyline, I suppose. You know what I mean?
Well, no
Because
loose ends.
he's just a guest star, so he can't come in and be the hero of the book. He has to let
Right.
Super Pro. And since Super Pro has proven over and over again that he's just not really the best there is at what he does. Um,
The anti-Wolverine.
the most mediocre. He's the most mediocre at what he does. And what he does isn't very exciting.
It's a great tagline. You talking about how they popped Spider-Man on there to sell more copies because this is an unproven entity. It's also interesting because like this is like peak bubble, right? So it says collector's item, first issue, 50 years of Captain America. They really want you to realize this number one issue is a collector's item, and I'm sure mine with all its scotch tape and tears and missing staples is just as valuable as the most pristine copy.
Right, because this is the 90s and you speak of the bubble, and it's during the speculators market where people are doing variant covers and multiple issues and looking at comics as more of a not a commodity but like an investment in a lot of ways. And yeah, so they definitely need to put all those selling points, first issue, blah blah blah, collector's item, everything was a collector's item.
Right. Yeah. Anything divisible by 5, any issue number divisible by 5 was like a anniversary.
Right.
But I wonder like how
And
much of that might have been a calculated move because you have like finance bros and sports bros. And there's a lot of overlap there. And so I
true.
wonder if they were thinking like maybe we can get like the speculator market really into Super Pro. Maybe that was
I know.
something.
I mean, if nothing else, I do think like I'm like, even as not like a football fan, but you know, I don't have anything against football, obviously. It's just, I'm just, you know, whatever. I was just playing with Barbie while other little boys were playing with footballs. But I'm so glad it exists. Like, it's actually historically very cool that Marvel Comics would come together with the NFL. And it's kind of funny because this is post Jim Shooter, who was the editor in chief of Marvel for years. And I think one of the things that Shooter did was so great. He was always trying to keep the company afloat by doing different things, different deals, different kinds of things. And it sort of speaks of that, you know, like he was very into his movie adaptions. And a lot of the movie adaptions are looked back as like not very good and things like that. But they were money for the company and keeping the bills paid and keeping the doors of Marvel Comics open. And also a good point that it's the 90s. You know, I feel like, you know, the bubble is coming, the comics market's about to implode. And they were not necessarily desperate, but it did seem like they were constantly trying to do like crazy, wacky, like crossovers. You know, this is at a point where you're getting like DC and Marvel crossing over together. And just, I wonder, like, if a lot of this was done to be like, oh my God, we need to save comics somehow or generate money and interest. And, you know, I really, because it just does make you wonder. Because then sometimes, you know, stupid things happen. You know, maybe Tom DeFalco had lunch with somebody from the NFL randomly, and hey, we should do a superhero comic. You know what I mean? Who knows?
Yeah.
I want to know. And like I said, I feel like our buddy Uncle Jerk would do such a great expose on Super
God.
Pro. I mean, like that's what that was another thing that I thought was funny about my video review of it. I said it's the video I want to watch, not the one I want to make.
That's, oh my God, I would love Uncle Jerk's in-depth coverage of Super Pro, because I bet, you know, you probably know better than me, like the whole history of Marvel and everything. And I was trying to find a date for it, but I think Marvel bought Fleer in 1992. You remember
that makes sense, yeah.
Trading cards, and so like that makes me think now, like, what if, like, how perfect would it have been if the timing aligned that we would have had Super Pro trading cards? Because that would have been a great way to merge the sports collectibles and the comic collectibles.
You just gave me the chills. Like I don't even know why, but I would love to have like the Super Pro trading cards. That would be so awesome. Get like all the great talents of the day to do it and have them like posing with different Marvel characters and stuff. Oh my gosh, that would be epic. Fan project. That is the possible thing that could come out of this. I don't know where it's going, but and I feel like we'll attach it to the end of all our videos of this series. But if you're amenable, the amazing Super Pro painting that you did.
Oh, sure.
Are we allowed to show that?
Sure, yeah. It's something I did just for fun, but you know, out of genuine love for the character. Yeah, I think other 90s artists like who were all known for doing those cards at the time, they were like Julie Bell and Boris Vallejo and Bill Sienkiewicz. Could you imagine like a Marvel Masterpieces like Super Pro series? Like how beautiful that would be. Joe Jusko, like all the, like it would be incredible.
And I know, and thanks to your reference though, when you referred to Liefeldian musculature, right. I absolutely want to see like a pinup of or a cover of Super Pro versus the roided out football player by Rob Liefeld. That would be so cool.
Or to even just have like a Liefeld take on Super Pro's armor design, like, you know, beef up his build and like add, you know, the pouches and straps and like make it look more like a 90s design. That would be like an interesting what if.
I know it actually, it would be, I mean, a whole like relaunch of Super Pro by Rob Liefeld would actually be really good. Like, I
wonder if he's a sports fan. Maybe
sure he would. That seems to be fit into his douchey wheelhouse. So yeah, for sure. I'm definitely thinking. No offense, Mr. Liefeld. Love your art, I do. so I'm so excited for our fans of this series because I mean we've only covered the special edition in #1 and we still have issues 2 through 11 plus what the to get through. And if any of our viewers have any insights on Super Pro and where else he might have appeared and just anything good like that, please feel free to leave in the comments. That is a badass panel right there.
I must have copied this in sketchbooks as a child dozens of times.
I mean, it's so genius in so many ways because, like I said, I mean, a lot, sports figures do just seem like superheroes. I mean, look at all the superheroes, you know, like LeBron James and Michael Jordan, and, you know, Bruce Jenner. I'm just kidding.
You're right though. Like the idea of a professional athlete performing superhuman acts is easier to swallow than a billionaire performing superhuman acts.
Right? You know, it's funny because I was one of my obsessions, you know, of course, is true crime, of course, and so especially as someone who lived through it, like I'm always very fascinated by the O.J. Simpson, you know, case and story. And I was watching some special about him, and it's always so focused on, you know, the murders and the obvious, and rightly so. But I was watching some special on him, and they were showing like a lot of his football footage. And once again, as not a football fan, I was blown away. Like he was so gifted. I mean, talk about a superhero, like just the way he danced across that field in a way with such grace and power and just like, it was kind of awe-inspiring. Like like moments like that kind of made me get it. You know what I mean? Like as someone who's not like inherently a sports fan, like when you see someone pull off those superhuman feats, it's just very like inspiring in the way that superheroes are.
Yeah, I feel like
that's what we're doing is bridging the gap between sports and comic books here. This is the most important podcast you'll ever see, people.
We're definitely the right two people to bridge that gap.
Exactly.
You should have found a co-host who was like an actual sports fan. That would have been smarter of you.
I know. So, you know, once again, inviting guests. We've got Buzz Aldrin coming on.
Buzz Dixon. Buzz Aldrin.
Oh, now I want Buzz Aldrin to come on. Is he still alive?
I don't know.
Because you had for no reason. On this week's episode of NFL Super Pro, here to talk about issue #3 of NFL Super Pro is Buzz Aldrin.
That would be amazing.
That would be totally
where were
amazing.
you when NFL Super Pro #3 came out?
So what can our viewers expect as we move forward with the series?
You know, I couldn't say because this is the full extent of what I've read so far.
Yeah, I know.
This issue I have read hundreds of times as a kid, and I have not read anything following it. So I'm going in cold. It'll be really interesting to see where it all goes. I'm very curious to see where characters return. Like, are they going to bring back Ron and Jeremy Macedon? Are they going to factor into the story in a long-term way? Are we going to see more of Rudy Custer because he survived? Super Pro saved him in his first adventure, and Custer let him keep the suit. So, like, is he going to level up the armor, or maybe Super Pro is going to get into a fight and he'll need to get repairs done and he'll have to go to Custer? Who knows? Like, I'm very curious to see where they take all of this. All I know is that there's a teaser at the end of this issue that says next issue, Quick Kick. He's an assassin with a deadly competitive edge.
Well, shut my mouth. That sounds exciting. I am looking forward to that for sure. I know it's funny because all of your wonder and anticipation of where the series is going is probably way more exciting than it's actually going to wind up. But I mean, there's so many hidden nuggets in this. It is like truly like, I don't even know, just amazing on so many levels. I just love this comic book. I really do. And I'm so glad we're doing this series. Like this would have never been on my radar if you had not, kept pushing this character's agenda for some unknown reason, like your childhood fascination. So, I mean, if we can be any part of just keeping the legacy alive and perhaps hopefully igniting, renewing interest and perhaps leading to a comeback of Super Pro. Like I said, like I feel like it's going to be one of those properties that is like sadly tied up in some sort of rigmarole as far as copy. I mean, you have Marvel Comics, who is now owned by Disney, doing a comic book of a football player who literally has the NFL logo on his costume. So, you know, there's got to be some tight contract going on there. Right. Or for all we know, like the best case scenario is like somehow he's public domain now and we could just publish our own comic book.
Oh, I wish. I've got ideas.
I know. I still think like, and I feel like we know a couple of people who would like be all over it, but maybe just a book of pinups or something, just for fun. We won't even sell it or anything. I don't know. Anyway,
we'll see where
it's in the Super Pro is in the ether. It's in the universe. He's back. Don't call it a comeback. He never went away. I mean, he did go away completely, but that's okay. So future episodes for our guests, our viewers, our fandom, our legions of fans to look forward to is Fabian Nicieza, who absolutely will 100% for sure want to come on and talk to us about his amazing creation, because I'm dying to know. Like, he's got to have so many great things to say about this. And I hope that like he has affection for the character and sees like the goodness in it that we see. And then we have Buzz Dixon, who was he a football player? Like, I feel
he played in high school.
Oh, he played in high school.
And he's a writer. He wrote, I believe, issue 5 of Super Pro.
Perfection. So he'll be coming on. Hopefully. This is our wish list, people. Joe Jusko to talk about his amazing, beautiful cover.
Jose Delbo. I really do like this art a lot. I think that
absolutely, I do too. Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, it's very like Marvel House style in a lot of ways, but it's like a good Marvel House style. So absolutely. I do appreciate it. And like the costume alone. Yeah, that's the thing. I want to see more NFL Super Pro cosplay. Cause I mean, I think that, you know, it wouldn't be super hard to do. Like, you know, just take a football helmet, repaint it.
There's a lot of detail on there. Like there's a lot of weird lines like in the leg area. Like there's basically like a red arrow pointing directly at his crotch. So it might take a little work, but I have seen some decent cosplay photos out there of Super Pro while doing research for this.
I'm sorry, but it's a blue arrow on the crotch.
Oh, it's a blue arrow.
Yeah, sorry to correct you like that, but
you have to. Before
I do. It's the checks and balances. I know. Could you imagine? That's the one takeaway from the whole thing. Sam, it's not a red arrow pointing to his crotch. It's a blue arrow pointing to his crotch. And this is just beautiful. I love this cover so much. And I love that when we were planning this, the football emoji does look a little bit like a turd.
Yeah, that's a good place to end it, I think.
I think so too, for sure. So thanks everybody for watching. If you've made it to the end of this, you either weren't paying attention or there's something inherently wrong with you. But we thank you so much for watching. This is just the first in an in-depth series of semi-pros on Super Pro, the amazing NFL Super Pro Marvel character. Captain America meets Superman meets somebody completely inept at being a superhero, and it is amazing. This should be one of the most riveting series of our career. I think definitely. I don't know if it's possible to win a Nobel Peace Prize for a podcast. However, we're gonna see. We're gonna see.
That's right. Do you mind if I did some quick plugs?
Absolutely.
All right.
Plug away.
My comic, Dishoom, I have 2 issues out right now. Issue 1 is on its second printing, and both are available at etsy.com/shop/SamJRoyale. It's available in print and digital formats. And there's also some original artwork on sale there as well, because if you pay a little extra, provide envelope sketches, and there's a few of those available still. And there's also the t-shirt store that my wife generously spent her time to prepare, dishoom.creator-spring.com. You have for t-shirts here with my logo.
I thought she was in the basement right now, silk screening t-shirts for you.
Oh, hardly. Thankfully, the good people at Creator Spring take care of all the heavy lifting there. But
very cool.
Store. So that's all I've got going on right now.
See, even if you weren't a Dishoom fan, I would still love that triangle t-shirt. That's very cool. Oh, it has like pseudo Illuminati vibes happening, so it's good. And as the proud owner of Dishoom #1 and 2, and some festive envelope art, I can tell you guys that it is totally worth checking out Sam's. I'll put a link to his Etsy in the description of the video. You guys need to go and buy Dishoom, because it's like one of the best comic books out there. Such an amazingly beautiful illustrated anthology. And I'm looking forward to seeing more from you. And I have exciting announcements to make soon. But other than that, just continue to watch and support my channel, you guys. Subscribe, share, like, blah, 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 whatever. And join us again. I don't know if it's going to be quite weekly, but we'll try to get them out as soon as possible. Yeah, weekly might be overstretching a bit.
You told me monthly when I agreed to this.
All right, so we will be doing this monthly. So look forward to the next episode of our in-depth coverage on NFL Super Pro. Thanks so much, Sam. This was a lot of fun. I hope that we are able to inspire people for NFL Super Pro the way that we have been inspired, and the way that you've inspired me. So I appreciate it.
Super Pro revolution. It's upon us.
It is. Woo, go team, or whatever appropriate sports reference.
Go sports.
Yeah, go sports. We're going to make it happen. All right.